All right, welcome, Emily. How's it going? So
Hello.
we've decided to do a podcast, right?
I
What's it
know,
called?
wild. What is it called? It's called DataChitChats, like the biscuit.
Love it, love it. Tell me a bit more about this biscuit, actually, Emily.
Yeah, you have it in Australia, right? It's like it's like a Tim. Oh, maybe it's our version of a Tim Tam. It's like
Gotcha.
a biscuit with like a chocolatey cream in the middle and then covered in chocolate, called a Chit Chat. Maybe it is just a New Zealand thing. Who knows? But they are delicious.
Very cool indeed. Well, yeah. So if you're listening in to the Data Chit Chats podcast in New Zealand, then perhaps you can. It's
Go out and get some Chit
a
Chats.
bit of a nudge to have a chit chat while
Not
listening to a
sponsored.
chit chat.
Hashtag not
They
ad.
haven't They haven't reached out to sponsor yet,
Yet, yeah,
but
true, true.
could happen. You never
Could
know.
happen. Anyway.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Emily, and I might do the same after you.
Oh yeah, about myself, man. I don't know where I start. I am technically an electrical/electronics engineer, according to a very expensive piece of paper that I am still paying the student loan of. And I am a kind of self-taught data engineer. I've had the pleasure of building data pipelines for early stage startups here in New Zealand. So that includes building data for rocket engines, cows, and software developers, which is three very different fields. But if you work in data, you know that the problems are kind of always the same. So over those kind of years, taught myself everything there is to know about data, and now I'm here.
Awesome. I know that you did a really cool talk on your background at Data Bytes in Melbourne,
Yes,
wasn't it? All the way back in 2023.
yes, which is actually where we met, and probably the beginnings of this talks of this podcast started.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fun couple of years collaborating with you, Emily. I think pretty shortly after the Melbourne conference, we kicked off uh, Data
Auckland,
Bytes in Auckland, didn't we?
yeah,
So that
yeah.
meetup, and then after a little while after that, probably about 10 or 11 months, we did our first conference in Auckland as well. That was some good fun.
Yeah, yeah, it was awesome. But
And
Peter, tell us about yourself. It's not just about me.
I was trying to, distract when you would forget that I'd need to do that. But yeah, so a bit about myself. I guess my background actually, I did my undergrads. I did medical science and behavioral science as my undergraduate
Oh, I didn't
degrees.
know that.
Uh, but yeah, like probably over the last 9 years, I started building out this data engineering meetup, which has kind of evolved into a conference spread across quite a few cities here in Australia and now into New Zealand. With your help, and then like, what do I do for a day job? Keep me out of trouble. That's running a consultancy called Cloud Shuttle, and effectively, what we do is we're a platform engineering consultancy with a bit of cloud and DevOps and training. So a lot of like our core mission is around sort of uplifting the capabilities of data engineers across Australia and New Zealand, and providing a lot of training and assistance, but also running these conferences, which hopefully are super inspiring for all of you. I know they're inspiring for me myself. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But that's enough about me.
We thank you for
uh,
your service to the data community.
oh, and you too, Emily. You're a big part of it. So, but for some reason, we didn't see much of you at the conferences this year. Tell us the reason why.
Yeah, no, I sadly missed the Melbourne and Sydney Data Introbytes conferences this year as I was away traveling the world. So in April, my partner and I threw caution to the wind and just decided to go traveling for 4 months, which is quite a long time. We traveled Southeast Asia, Europe, and the US, just kind of stopping off along the way, hitting the hot spots, catching up with various friends and colleagues I've made over the years, eating lots of food, meeting new friends, chatting with the locals. Yeah, it was a really awesome, very eye opening experience. It's definitely a little bit sad to be back home. I mean, I appreciate New Zealand so much more now. It's a beautiful country, and you know, living here is pretty easy. And but I still miss traveling every day, not having much to do except for exploring the sites. So yeah, but now I'm back.
Yeah, I saw the photos that you posted. They looked incredible. Sounds like you've got some amazing memories from the entire trip. And any particular highlights that really sort of got you? Any particular sites or countries that you visited that really stood out to you?
Yeah, really loved Milos in Greece, which is a Greek island. Just amazing people, really good food, not super covered with tourists, good weather, beautiful beaches. Yeah, that was like probably one of my favorite places, as well as Montana in the States. I was riding horses through Montana and Wyoming, and I just want to go back there and live my best cowgirl life. It was awesome. People were so friendly as well. Like I just Montana definitely has a special place in my heart now. I have cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. Like just loved it. Um, yeah, that's probably the kind of the two top places. Anything else? I mean, oh, loved favorite food was definitely moussaka in Greece with like the eggplant and the
Yep.
bechamel. Oh, so good. And Greek wine, delicious. Also really loved huckleberry is like a type of berry in kind of Montana, Wyoming, in that area of the states. They have huckleberry everything, including huckleberry tequila, which was really yum.
Wow.
Yeah, there's just so many things that I forget and then remember when we go through photos. So many places, so
Yeah.
many people.
It sounded like an epic trip. I think you covered more than a handful of continents. Would it be fair to say?
Yes, yeah, 16 countries in total.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah.
that's intense to cover that in 4 months.
4 months, yeah, that was a lot, but cool. It was awesome. Never gonna do
So,
probably never gonna do it again in my life, very unique experience.
yeah, that's phenomenal, very inspirational. And so now you're back home in New Zealand. Obviously, New
Yeah.
Zealand's a fantastic country to go visit as well. I definitely keep going back there year after year. Now more so with all of the conferences and meetups, which is not a bad thing. Love heading over that way. But so what's the plans now? What's on the cards now that you've kind of settled back into New Zealand?
Yeah, so basically the day I got back, I was like, "Okay, spent all my money traveling. How do I A, survive, and B, go traveling again?" So I decided, okay, I probably need to get a job. So having kind of worked in startups for most of my career and being the sole like data engineer or data person, I decided I was like, okay, I really would love to work in like a team of data people or like a data company to really kind of hone my data engineering craft. Because as I mentioned, I was a bit of a self-taught data engineer. I didn't do any courses or read any books. I just kind of learned the hard way by doing stuff and it breaking. So yeah, so basically I'm looking for a sort of data engineering role at the moment, which yeah, has definitely been an interesting time because the last time I was applying for jobs was probably like 8 years ago. So
It's funny, isn't it? Like so many of us, the way that we typically would get a job is through our network these days, right? It's been quite interesting, you know, uh, navigating all of that, and and also just the job market post COVID. But now,
yeah.
I think the big thing, right, is navigating the job market with all of these AI tools out there, and
The AI.
you know, how is it? How do we stand out, and what are the I guess what are the pros and cons with using them, and what are the do's and don'ts. So how's that been for you so far, Emily? Like you've been sort of starting to apply for jobs, and I guess going through the whole sort of uh, you know technical testing and things like that, and even
Yeah.
even writing a cover letter, I guess, ChatGPT or Claude.
Yeah.
would probably write you a pretty killer cover letter these days, which I always found such a pain to write, right? But
Ugh, I
now
know.
it's just like, okay, give it to Claude, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been very, very interesting because it almost feels and a little bit pointless like cold applying for roles, especially when you see, one data engineering role has like 1,000 applicants, and it's just, a New Zealand or Australian company, and you're like, we don't even have that many data engineers in the country. How is there so many applicants? Because now it's just, of course, so much easier to make the perfect CV, make the perfect cover letter, and just bulk apply for any role possible. So, how do you stand out when there's 1,000 resumes in there? Obviously, using ChatGPT for your resume, for your cover letter is really good, but it still has to be truthful. Um, so I have felt at least getting the foot in the door, relying on my networks has been the number one. You can at least get into a chat with the recruiter and have a face-to-face conversation rather than, putting interview questions into ChatGPT and getting perfect answers. So yeah, that has been very interesting. And then on the flip side is like, what is interviewing now that we have AI, when people can make avatars that attend video interviews, the leak codes, the hacker ranks, you can just use AI to answer those questions. So yeah, it's definitely been very interesting and a little bit frustrating when companies haven't really changed their processes to allow for the use of AI during the interview process.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm very conscious of as a hiring manager. Running a
Yeah,
consultancy, every so often I need to hire a few extra data engineers, and the days of like giving a technical test and everyone just hand coding it themselves from scratch, it just doesn't happen
yeah,
anymore. Everyone's using
yeah.
ChatGPT or something. So how is it that how have you found the technical tests that you've done so far, Emily? In this round of interviews that you've been doing,
Yeah. Yeah, I've kind
how's
of
that
done
experience been?
Yeah, I've kind of done a few different ones. There's kind of like the three, well, there's usually two, right? Either like, a live coding test, or at least like a hacker rank leak code, kind of do these questions in a time frame or with us. And then there's like the take home test. Again, I just feel, and like, some say yes, you can use AI, some say no, you absolutely can't use AI, which is just, I just feel a bit behind the times, because in your job you almost are expected nowadays to use AI, and if you're not, you're probably going to be falling behind. Like, it's a super, super useful tool. So in our interviews, we should be seeing how people do interact with AI and how they use it to improve their skills in their job, rather than just having a blanket no. And then, for the leak code questions, well, do we need to know how to reverse a binary tree? Like, do we need to know how to code the algorithm from our heads, or can we just ask ChatGPT to do it? Obviously, we have to know how to assess that it's going to be, efficient and it's doing it correctly. But why would you prohibit someone from using AI when it's such an enabler in the workforce? Especially if you are also saying that in the job and in your experience, you have to have experience with LLMs and AI and all that sort of stuff. But an interesting method I have come across is that some companies are doing AI assisted interviews where they pose a more broader problem, and you can use AI, whatever AI tools you want, and then they kind of assess how you use AI in your workflow. And I think hopefully that's the way we're going, because I don't want to have to memorize more 2D array algorithms. Yeah, so, and that's just going to be the real world, right? Like, this is how we work. We need to change our interview processes to allow for this. So yeah, I definitely have preferred the companies where they've been a lot more open about it.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like if you're doing all of this like rote testing and stuff like that, you're
Yeah,
definitely sort of falling behind the times. So I guess the way that we're being sort of encouraged as employers
Yeah.
speaking for myself here, is to sort of like embrace AI, embrace the
Yeah.
fact that the folks that you're going to be hiring are going to be using AI, but at least just make sure that they um, understand what's being produced, can actually
Yes.
guide the AI to sensible outcomes, and like, what else would you sort of say for employers such as myself looking to hire, more data engineers? Like, what, from an interviewee's perspective, how would you like me to think about, what's happening, and the evolution that's occurring in the hiring market?
Yeah. I feel like for data engineers in particular, the fundamentals are just super key. Like, can you coach your AI and properly prompt your AI to get what you need? I think, yeah, the interviews where you're allowed to use an AI tool are super beneficial, but can you also explain what it has outputted, what you would do differently, and then the sort of fundamental concepts of has it used something weird in Python where it's used an array instead of a list, and um, can you assess it for things like taking it into production? Because sometimes the code that ChatGPT generates is not really production worthy. And
Yeah.
then how would you maintain that code? How would you document that code? Although ChatGPT is pretty good for documenting as well. Um, yeah, so more having a conversation around things of like, what is the output? What have you put together? And I think that's a much more like conducive way to assess someone's skills, because pretty much anyone could probably put a prompt into ChatGPT and get some code that works, but can they explain why and how it works, how they would change it, how they would improve it, how they would productionize it? Um, yeah, what do you think? How much have you kind of used AI tools in your interview processes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how much? I guess I still give fairly sort of traditional tests. For data engineers, the profile that I tend to go for are sort of like Master of Computer Science graduates that have a bit of an understanding of
Mm,
data concepts. And then so I just give them a basic like SQL and Python coding challenge. Um, just to understand, and then a couple of like ML and data sciencey related things just as
mm,
stretch testing. And I mean, honestly, it's an absolute requirement for folks that I hire to know how to code. Like, it's just like there's no escaping it, because really need people to
oh,
understand how
100%.
to code and interact with cloud services and stuff like that. But you know I think, in saying that, part of the job is like there's a comprehension side of the job as well, and then
Mm,
there's the ability to sort of like explain like what's going on and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I think you're absolutely right in the sense that this is just, it's like a calculator, right? It's just helps you to do the thing
Yeah.
faster, but you still need to know how to do the thing.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think even if you're using the calculator, it's still a valid assessment. uh, you know, when we get you to sort of explain it and comprehend these questions and things like that, you know, because there's still a lot of people that'll screw the thing up, even with Chat GPT and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's, and I think, in terms of like my personal experience with all of these coding tools, like you said, they're really good at building out a proof of concept like website. Looks great.
Yeah.
But then when you sort of start using the forms, some of the you know validation logic and error checks and things, and
Hmm.
how they pass inputs, sanitize them and stuff like that, not always works well. And so you need to add a layer of testing and a whole bunch of other things to improve the code quality and actually verify and validate that the thing
Yeah.
actually works, because one shot prompts usually just kind of like, at first glance they look good, but usually there's a few extra bits and pieces, or more than a few extra bits and pieces that needed to be added to the mix. Same with like data pipelines, and just kind of making sure that the schemas and all these sorts of things, and just even just full stop knowing you
Yeah.
know how to go through the various hops and like say I did a webinar the other day around sort of like building data pipelines with Mage and doing the
Mm,
field validations and cleansing and all of these sorts of steps. So if you don't know that you should be performing these steps, then
exactly.
obviously that's you need to know how to drive the car, really, isn't it? So
Yeah.
uh, so I think it's really good, and I'm not afraid. I don't get put off with applicants using Chat GPT. In fact, like I tell them, in the screening call, it's like if you're not using Chat GPT
Yeah.
or something similar,
Preferred
that's a
LLM.
negative indication, in my opinion. It's just like you're going to be
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
slow. You're not going to make it, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
And
it's good, but having to definitely adjust the way that I assess folks for sure.
yeah, another really useful thing I've found for AI for like just even interview prep is just like asking it like, okay, here's the job description. What kind of questions could I get? Whether that's like technical SQL, Python questions, or whether it's more the behavioral interview questions, like the maybe the job mentions something about being super detail oriented, and so it's going to be like, tell us about a time when you had to be very detail oriented about something. So, and then you can kind of start thinking in your head, okay, how would I answer that question? And then usually I try and answer them myself first, and then I'll be like, okay, ChatGPT, now imagine you are like the best candidate for this role, how would you answer this question? Of course, it still needs to be unique and true to you. You can't just lie, but it's just very helpful being like, okay, that's how you'd answer the question. Especially for me, someone who I haven't actually ever interviewed for a data engineering role, right? Like I have kind of formed my own path and been at startups and moved startup to startup kind of solely through my own networks. So I've never had to interview for this. So I'm like, what is a SQL interview? I don't know. So it's very helpful for those more technical questions where it's like, how would you use a window function here? Where I just haven't had to do that. And just to be like, okay, that's how you would do it. Learn for next time. Yeah, just really useful for that. Because usually to do that, I remember, you'd like search up the company on like Glassdoor and try and find like interview questions that people have posted. But yeah, just the LLMs make it so much easier to synthesize a lot of information and just give you some ideas of what questions could be asked.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, it's just an enabler. It helps you to fly
Yeah.
faster and stuff like that. But I think another thing is that, uh, given that, basically LLMs are sort of like flattening out the job market or the candidate pool, isn't it? It's just like, well, we've all got these amazing capabilities now. It's almost
Mm,
like an exoskeleton. So, how do I differentiate between you and 1,000 other candidates that have
yeah.
just spewed out the same
Same
you know
CV,
Claude
different name.
response or whatever it is, and I think it's that point around the whole networking piece, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this as well, Emily. But in my experience and opinion, it's just like leveraging your network, especially as an employer. Like if I can sort of find out a little bit about the applicant and who knows them,
Mm,
who's worked with them, if I've seen them around, sort of like some of those networking events and things like that, it definitely makes it a lot easier to, in my mind, really just
mm,
remember them and recall them because you know, I've I've posted some jobs in the past and they've just really blown up, and it's just like,
yeah.
well, there's like 200 or 300 applicants for this thing. I didn't realize we were that popular. How do I even filter that down to something that I can sort of work with? Like say 30 applicants and stuff like that. And I think it's just, people that you've shook hands with and sort of perhaps shared a slice of pizza at a meetup or something like that.
Yeah.
It definitely helps you to stand out. But keen to hear your thoughts and how that's impacted you in your uh, current job search.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's been solely networks. Actually, I think most. most kind of job prospects that I'm going for are people that I met either at DataChitChats or indirectly involved with data engineering meetup here in Auckland.
Yeah.
I just like didn't have those networks kind of before then.
Ah,
So yeah, so that has been like super key. Even just kind of knowing like all the technologies out there. So I've just found that the most useful because I haven't had to, cold apply to any job. I've been able to kind of chat to the person that I know and then kind of be put in directly with the recruiter and then kind of just like go through the interview process. Um, and like for me, just finding a company that has a really good culture and a really good team is probably the most important thing. So already knowing someone there like speaks highly of the company if they're like a particularly awesome person. So yeah, I found that the most useful, and the companies that I'm most excited about just have a really cool team and it's all vibes.
all the vibes.
All
Yeah,
the
that's
vibes. Hopefully I
as
pass the technical interviews, you know.
yeah, like good vibes. Like I think that's true. It's just like now that I guess a lot of the technical is becoming it's almost evened out the playing field as long as you are embracing like if you're not embracing a lot of these new technologies then you're just falling so rapidly behind it's not funny but if you are there's been that real leveling out of the playing field but also, I think it really sort of accentuates the deep need for that personal connection and um,
Yeah, it's
the,
huge.
the human side of things as well. So just being fun to be around, easy to work with. That's definitely what I look for a lot in my employees as well. Is kind of you know can you bounce some things off of each other and come to a solution quite quickly and you know
Yeah,
able to just kind of get on with things without too much stress or confusion and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I definitely think you know recognizing that someone's like a really fun company to work for, or vice versa. Someone who's a really fun person to work with and hire. That's definitely something. So yeah,
yeah.
like
Obviously,
to
so you still got to pass the competencies and the technical skills, the networking and the vibes gets you through the door, and then you still gotta meet hopefully some sort of criteria.
yeah. Look, I've done that in the past where I've just gone purely on like the vibes and stuff like that, and I think they have a tough time and it doesn't necessarily work out very well in the end because I
Mm,
mean if you don't have that competency, it's a real struggle. But yeah, sounds like it's been a really good chat, Emily. So in terms of like wrapping up and what your top tips are for landing a job in this
yeah.
market.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard market. It also does feel very senior heavy. I don't think I've seen a single role that's not a senior data engineer.
Yeah,
So if you're a junior out there, I know it must be tough. But my top tips is just use AI as much as you can and as much as the company lets you. If they don't let you use AI, that's fine. Hopefully you can, start using it once you're in there, or maybe they're just like not very progressive. Um, and use it to help you prep for interviews, technical questions, as well as get along to events. Not just data eng bites, but like go out and meet people in the community and chat to people, study up as well. If you're a junior and you want to move into a more higher level position, how do you do that? um yeah, so leverage AI, leverage your networks is probably my top two. And on the flip side, Peter, what would you say to companies trying to hire in this kind of market?
yeah. Get involved in networks. Really is the big thing. Put yourselves out there. If you're looking to hire, there's nothing better than sort of doing a meetup presentation from one of the senior technologists in the team. Getting out there and just kind of talking about what problems that you're trying to solve at the moment. That's and that way that you can start a conversation with some of the talent that's already out there. There's always lots of people coming to meetups looking for roles, and so being able to have that conversation, and always like never stop looking. Like once you get a
Mm.
job, you don't necessarily want to be applying for jobs as soon as you land a job or something like that. But just, it's always a good idea just to always be in the market, whether you're hiring or whether you're looking for a job, or like, you're employed and stuff like that, because there's a lot of opportunities that can come up. You don't want to necessarily always be in that situation when you don't have a job. That's when you start looking, or when you need to hire, that's when you start looking, because it
Mm.
feels like at the moment, the market, there's a lot of talent available in the market. I don't know how long that's going to hang around for. Maybe next
Yeah.
year we might see there's another big shortage of tech talent. And, you know, if you're only just going to start your activities in terms of how you're going to hire and the like, you know, next year, you're going to be very late to the game, because there's a lot of folks already kicking that stuff off. So,
Mm.
I don't want to use this as too much of a marketing tool, but, definitely reach out and get involved. Maybe think about sponsoring Data Insights. Shameless sales pitch, but
Wow, Peter, first episode, straight in with that.
straight in, straight in. Yeah, shameful, shameful. No, look, but aside from that, there's lots of free ways to contribute, and get yourself out there. Is presenting at a meetup. That's probably the best one. That way that you can have that 2A conversation of lots of candidates coming to the meetup, interested in hearing from your company and stuff like that. But no, it's all good. But like in terms of like how else, other tips is just make sure that the candidates do have the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Always test and verify that whatever they're sort of producing actually isn't just something that looks really cool and is the output of Claude or something like that. It actually works, and that they can walk you all the way through it and stuff like that, because I think a lot of people are going to get easily fooled by lots of shiny stuff coming out of all of these fantastic LLMs, which
Yeah.
is they do a wonderful job, but are they production ready? And and that's really where we get paid the big bucks, is to you know bringing things into production. So
Yeah. I
that's
feel
my
like,
parting thought.
yeah, I
Any
feel like in
parting thoughts from
summary,
you?
it's fundamentals will always be key, even in the age of AI. But then leverage AI, leverage your networks for whether you're hiring or whether you're looking for a job. That's probably the three key things. And if anyone's listening to this, hi, hello, welcome, and wanting some first-hand advice of me having to apply for jobs and go through this for the past like 2 weeks, definitely reach out. I'd be happy to chat, and hopefully next podcast maybe I'll have a job. Maybe.
Looking forward to it. All the very
I can
best to you,
share the exciting
Emily.
stories.
Fingers and toes crossed.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for the chat, Emily. Actually, and
Yeah, thank you.
hopefully we can bring on a couple of other guests in their subsequent episodes. So please do reach out if you're keen to uh, do a bit
Chit
of
chat.
data chit chatting.
Yeah.
All right, ciao for now.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.